Welcome, friend. Tonight we walk a quiet path together, one that asks nothing of you. The day has ended, and whatever was left undone can wait until morning returns. For now, there is only this moment, this breath, this gentle descent into rest. You need not do anything but listen, and even listening requires no effort at all. Let your body sink deeper into whatever holds you now, bed or chair or floor. Notice how the weight distributes itself, how gravity pulls without force, how stillness arrives naturally. The breath moves on its own, rising and falling like tides that have never questioned their rhythm. You are safe here, held by something larger than worry, something older than fear. Somewhere in the distance, rain begins to fall on temple stones worn smooth by centuries. The sound is soft, persistent, a whisper that says the same thing again and again. It says that all things pass, that nothing urgent remains, that peace is always here beneath the noise. Candles flicker in darkened halls where monks have walked for 1,000 years without hurry. Their footsteps echo briefly, then fade, leaving only the sound of breath and rain and silence. Tonight we will visit a few stories, simple tales from an ancient tradition of wisdom. These are not lessons to be learned, but mirrors to be gazed into quietly, without judgment. They come from a time when people understood that truth cannot be forced, only discovered. The wise ones never preached. They simply pointed toward the moon and let others find their own way. So let these stories wash over you like water, asking nothing, offering everything, dissolving as they go. There is no need to remember what you hear tonight, no test waiting in the morning. This is not about gathering knowledge, but about letting go of the need to gather anything. The mind will hold what it needs and release what it does not. Your only task is to breathe, to rest, to allow the words to carry you deeper into quietness. In a village nestled between mountains and sea, there lived a calligrapher known throughout the region. His brushwork was said to capture the very essence of wind, of bamboo bending, of water flowing. People travelled great distances to commission scrolls from him, poems and prayers written in characters that seemed alive. But what few knew was that this master calligrapher had been completely blind since childhood. When students discovered this truth, they came to him bewildered, asking how one who could not see could create such beauty. The old man smiled, his sightless eyes turning toward the sound of their voices. He invited them to sit, poured tea with perfect precision, and began to speak in a voice like distant thunder. "The world you see," he said, "is not the world I know, yet we both live here. You look at ink and paper and call it calligraphy, but I feel the breath moving through my arm." The students sat in confusion, wanting explanations, wanting methods they could practice and perfect. But the calligrapher simply lifted his brush and began to write, his movements fluid and certain. The bristles danced across paper, leaving characters that seemed to breathe with life, each stroke balanced perfectly. "When you try to see what you are doing," he said quietly, "you lose the doing itself. The hand knows what the eye can never understand. That true vision comes from darkness, not light." One student, braver than the others, asked how he had learned to write without sight. The master set down his brush and was quiet for a long while, so long that the students thought perhaps he had forgotten the question. Then he spoke, and his words were slow as honey dripping from a comb. "I did not learn to write in darkness," he said. I learned that I had always been writing in darkness. Even when I had eyes, I could not see the truth of what I made. I saw only results, only praise or criticism, only my own fear of failing. When the illness took my sight, I raged against the void for many seasons. I thought my art had ended, that without vision there could be no beauty, no purpose. But the brush remained in my hand because I did not know what else to do. And one night, alone in my room, I dipped the brush in ink and let it move. I stopped trying to control it, stopped trying to see ahead, stopped trying at all. The characters that emerged that night were the first true ones I had ever made. The students absorbed this in silence, each contemplating what it might mean to stop trying. The calligrapher continued, his voice softer now, almost merging with the sound of rain beginning outside. When you chase perfection, you lose the present moment, and the moment is where all beauty lives. When you fear making mistakes, your hand grows tight, and tightness makes everything rigid and lifeless. But when you surrender to not knowing, when you let the brush move through darkness, both inner and outer, something else emerges. That something, he said, cannot be taught or learned or captured in words that explain. It can only be experienced by those brave enough to close their eyes while the hand continues. This is not blindness, this is true seeing, the kind that requires no eyes at all. The students left that day carrying more questions than answers, but the questions felt lighter somehow, less like problems and more like companions on a longer journey. This is how wisdom often arrives, not as a thunderbolt of clarity, but as a quiet shift. We spend so much of life trying to see ahead, to control outcomes, to avoid darkness. But the calligrapher knew what the ancient teachers have always known, that light and dark are partners in a dance. One cannot exist without the other, and both are necessary for anything beautiful to emerge into being. Consider this now, as you lie here in your own darkness, eyes closed, no longer trying to see. What if this darkness is not absence but presence, not lack but fullness waiting to be noticed? The mind likes to believe it must always be, watching, always directing, always in control. But the body knows differently, breathing without instruction, heart beating without your permission, dreams forming without your conscious design. Let your breath become like the calligrapher's brush, moving without effort, without destination, without needing to create anything perfect. Each inhale arrives on its own, each exhale dissolves without regret. There is no good breath or bad breath, only this eternal movement that asks nothing of you. The tightness in your shoulders, the tension in your jaw, the thoughts circling like birds, all of these can soften now. You do not need to push them away, or fix them, or understand them completely. Simply notice they are there, like sounds in the distance, and return your attention to the breath. This is not concentration, not effort, just a gentle returning, again and again, like waves touching shore. Each time the mind wanders, each time you notice you are thinking instead of resting, you have not failed. You have simply remembered, and the remembering itself is the practice, the returning itself is the peace. In another time, in another temple, there lived a community of monks devoted to meditation. They rose before dawn, sat in silence for hours, studied ancient texts with reverence and care. At the centre of their meditation hall stood a simple wooden altar where they placed offerings of rice and fruit, and on this altar, curled in perfect contentment, slept a cat. No one remembered when the cat had first arrived or why she had chosen their temple. She was simply there one morning, a small tortoiseshell creature with amber eyes and a purr like distant drums. The monks, being compassionate, fed her scraps and let her remain, thinking she would eventually wander away. But the cat stayed, and more curiously, she seemed to prefer sleeping on the altar during the most sacred meditation sessions. At first, the monks tried to ignore her, focusing their attention on their practice with renewed discipline. But the cat had a way of stretching at the most profound moments, of yawning loudly during the deepest silence. Some monks found this disruptive, their concentration broken by a twitch of whiskers or a lazy paw. Others found it amusing, suppressing smiles that felt inappropriate in such a serious setting. The head monk, an elderly man with a face like weathered stone, watched this situation unfold. He said nothing for many weeks, observing both the cat and the monks with equal attention. Then one morning, after the meditation session ended, he gathered everyone and spoke. "This cat," he said, "has become our greatest teacher, though few of you have noticed her lessons yet. You sit here trying to achieve perfect stillness while growing disturbed by a sleeping animal." The younger monks looked confused, uncertain whether they were being scolded or praised. The old monk smiled, his eyes crinkling like paper folded many times. "You have created an idea of what meditation should be," he continued. "A picture of silence without disruption, of inner peace undisturbed by outer circumstances. But this is not peace, this is control, and control is just another form of suffering. The cat sleeps because she has no picture of how sleep should be. She stretches when her body needs stretching, rests when rest arrives, moves when movement calls her. She does not compare this moment to some other moment she imagines would be better." From that day forward, the cat remained on the altar, and the monks stopped trying to ignore her. They began to notice how completely she inhabited each moment, how a sunbeam could capture her attention entirely. There was no part of her that remained elsewhere, worrying about the future or regretting the past. When she slept fully. When she woke completely. When she stretched, the stretch was everything. Years passed, and the cat eventually grew old, her movements slower, but no less present. When she died, the monks buried her beneath a plum tree in the garden and placed a small stone to mark the spot. Visitors to the temple would ask about the stone, and the monks would smile and say, "Here lies our teacher." And when the visitors looked confused, the monks would explain that enlightenment is not something achieved through effort alone. Sometimes it is simply witnessed in the way a cat stretches in a shaft of morning light. This story touches something important, something easily forgotten in our busy, goal-driven lives. We believe that peace must be earned, that stillness requires perfect conditions, that rest should look a certain way. But the cat knew what we have forgotten, that existence itself is enough, that this breath, this moment, this exact now contains everything we have been seeking. The monks were trying to escape disturbance, but disturbance is part of life, part of the fabric of being. Birds sing during meditation, thunder rumbles, bodies ache, minds wander, cats stretch on altars. None of these things oppose peace, they are simply occurring, as neutral as clouds crossing a sky. It is only our judgment, our wanting things to be different, that creates the suffering we then try to meditate away. So here, now, in your own darkness, what if you stopped trying to achieve perfect relaxation? What if the sounds around you, the discomfort in your back, the thoughts still whispering, all of these were simply part of the moment, neither good nor bad? What if peace was not the absence of disturbance, but the acceptance of whatever arises, including the disturbance itself? Let your breath continue its rhythm, neither forcing it slower nor letting it race ahead. Let your body be exactly as it is, tired or restless, comfortable or not. Let your mind think its thoughts without punishing it for thinking, without demanding silence it cannot yet provide. This is the cat's teaching, to be fully here, fully now, fully alive to whatever is occurring without needing it to be something else. Rain continues falling somewhere in the world, on temple stones and city streets and open fields. It falls on the sleeping and the waking, on the peaceful and the troubled, without preference or judgment. It simply falls as breath simply breathes, as night simply darkens, as rest simply arrives when we stop resisting its gentle invitation. You are held by something much larger than your small efforts, something that has been breathing you since before you learned to breathe yourself. In the mountains of old, where mist clings to pine trees like memory, there was once a monastery renowned for its library. Scholars came from distant lands to study the texts preserved there, ancient manuscripts copied by hand across generations. The library was the pride of the monastery, its treasure, its purpose for existing at all. The monks who tended it did so with devotion, treating each scroll as sacred, each page as irreplaceable. One autumn night, fire broke out in the kitchen and spread quickly through the wooden buildings. Monks rushed to carry water, to save what they could, to battle flames that seemed alive with hunger. The head librarian, a man who had spent 40 years cataloguing and preserving texts, stood watching his life's work begin to burn. Younger monks begged him to help them rescue scrolls, to grab what could be saved before everything was lost. But the old librarian did something that confused everyone watching. He sat down on a stone bench in the courtyard, folded his hands in his lap, and simply watched the fire. Flames climbed the walls, smoke poured from windows, and still he sat without moving. The other monks thought shock had paralysed him, that grief had stolen his capacity to act. They ran past him again and again, arms full of scrolls, faces streaked with ash. By dawn, the fire had died, leaving the library as a skeleton of charred beams and ash. Most of the collection was destroyed, centuries of knowledge reduced to fragments and smoke. The monks sat exhausted, many weeping for what had been lost, some angry at the old librarian who had done nothing. When someone finally asked him why he had not helped, why he had simply watched their treasure burn, the old man smiled softly. "I have been thinking," he said, "about why we kept those books at all. We said they preserved wisdom for future generations, that they contained truths too important to lose. But what kind of truth can be destroyed by fire, swept away by one night of flames? If wisdom can burn, then perhaps it was never wisdom, only words pretending to be more than they were." The monks fell silent, uncertain how to respond to what sounded like sacrilege. The old librarian continued, his voice gentle but clear, carrying across the ruined courtyard. "For 40 years I believed I was protecting something essential, guarding treasures that must not be lost. But last night, watching the fire, I understood something I had read 1,000 times, but never truly grasped. Impermanence is not a teaching, it is simply the truth of how things are. Every scroll we saved will eventually crumble, he explained, whether in fire or through time's slower decay. Every word written will fade, every teaching will be forgotten or transformed beyond recognition. This is not tragedy, this is simply how form works, how the physical world dances. But the wisdom those scrolls pointed toward cannot burn because it is not made of paper and ink. It exists in the mind that understands, in the heart that embodies, in the life that lives the teaching rather than merely reading about it. One of the younger monks, tears still fresh on his face, asked what they should do now. The old librarian stood slowly, his body stiff from sitting all night in cold air. "We begin again," he said, "but this time we will not confuse the map with the territory. We will copy what we remember, not from scrolls, but from understanding, not from archives, but from direct experience, and we will hold it all lightly, knowing that nothing we create will last forever, and that this is not a problem to be solved, but a truth to be accepted." The monastery was eventually rebuilt, and a new library slowly took shape. But this library was different somehow. The monks who tended it less anxious, less protective, more interested in living the teachings than merely preserving them. When visitors came to study, they found not just books, but human beings who could speak from experience rather than simply quoting ancient authorities. Years later, travellers would hear about the monastery where the library had burned and ask if the monks mourned the loss. Those who asked would receive the same answer from whoever they encountered, delivered with a slight smile and a peaceful demeanour. "We lost many books that night," the monks would say, "but we gained something more important. We learned that true wisdom cannot be stored on shelves or protected behind walls. It can only be embodied, lived, breathed, and passed from heart to heart like a flame that never diminishes by being shared. This teaching runs deep, touching fears we all carry about loss and impermanence. We accumulate possessions, achievements, memories, trying to build something permanent in a world where nothing lasts. We hold tightly to relationships, to youth, to the way things were, as if our grip could stop time's flowing. But the librarian discovered what the Buddha taught long ago, that attachment to permanence is the root of suffering, not because permanence is bad, but because it does not exist anywhere except in imagination. Everything we love will change. Everyone we know will eventually leave. Every structure we build will crumble. This sounds depressing until we realize it is also liberating, that once we stop fighting against impermanence, we can finally be present with what is here now. The sunset is beautiful precisely because it does not last, the flower precious because it will fade, the moment rich because it will never come again. You are here now, lying in darkness, breathing, alive, aware. Tomorrow you will be different, your body older by a day, your thoughts rearranged, your circumstances shifted in ways you cannot predict. This is not something to fear, but something to wonder at, this constant transformation that never stops, this river that carries us whether we cling to the banks or float freely. And what if peace is not found by holding on, but by letting go, by trusting the current, by accepting that nothing, absolutely nothing, stays the same? Your breath has changed since we began, deeper perhaps, or slower, or more irregular. Your body has shifted, adjusted, released in small ways you may not even notice. Thoughts have come and gone like travellers passing through a village, some staying longer, Others barely noticed. All of this is impermanence at work, the natural flow that cannot be stopped, only resisted or welcomed. And welcoming feels so much softer than resisting, so much more aligned with how reality actually functions. The library burned, the cat died, the calligrapher lost his sight, and yet the story continues. The teaching remains. The wisdom flows forward through different forms, different voices, different moments. Nothing is lost except the illusion that anything could be held forever, and that illusion was always the only real obstacle. So rest now in this understanding, not as an idea to grasp, but as a truth to sink into. Let the day you lived dissolve into memory. Let tomorrow remain formless and unknown, and simply be here, simply this, simply breathing in a darkness that holds you like an old friend. If these teachings bring you peace, you are welcome to return to them whenever rest calls you inward. This space exists always. These stories wait patiently, and the voice speaking to you now is just another form that impermanence wears. You can subscribe if you wish, return whenever you need, reminding that peace is always here, always available, always waiting beneath the noise. But even that choice can wait, can fade into the background as you sink deeper into this moment. There was a time, neither near nor far, when a young woman set out to find a teacher. She had heard of a master who lived alone in the mountains, someone who understood the nature of mind. The journey was long and difficult, requiring weeks of travel through forests and across rivers. Many gave up before reaching the remote hut where the master supposedly lived, but the young woman persisted, driven by a hunger for understanding. When she finally arrived, exhausted and uncertain, she found an old woman sitting outside a simple dwelling, weaving thread into cloth. The young seeker approached and asked if the master was available for teaching. The old woman did not look up from her weaving, but replied that the master was always teaching, always available, though few recognized the lessons. Confused, the young woman asked where the master could be found. The old woman smiled and said, "You are looking at her." The seeker felt disappointed, having expected someone more impressive, someone radiating obvious wisdom or surrounded by devoted students. This old woman seemed ordinary, her clothes simple, her hut unremarkable, her actions mundane. Nevertheless, having come so far, the young woman asked to be taught. The master continued weaving, her fingers moving with practiced rhythm, thread crossing thread in patterns that formed slowly. "What do you want to learn?" the master asked, and the young woman replied that she wanted to understand the nature of mind, to achieve enlightenment, to be free from suffering. The master nodded, still weaving, still not looking directly at her visitor. "And do you think," the master asked, "that enlightenment is something I can give you, something that can be transferred from one person to another, like a bowl of rice?" The young woman hesitated, sensing a trap in the question. She said she did not know, that she had simply heard the master could teach what could not be taught elsewhere. The old woman set down her weaving and finally met the seeker's eyes with a gaze that seemed to look through rather than at. "I will teach you," she said, "but only if you stay here and work. You will cook, clean, tend the garden, fetch water, and follow my instructions without question. If you can do this for 1 year, at the end I will answer any question you still have." The young woman agreed, thinking she would prove her worthiness through service and dedication. Days turned into weeks, weeks into months, and still the master offered no profound teachings. She simply gave tasks, mundane and repetitive, cleaning the same floors, preparing the same meals, drawing water from the same well. The young woman grew frustrated, feeling her precious time wasted on labour when she should be receiving wisdom. One night, after months of service, she confronted the master, demanding to know when the real teaching would begin. The old woman laughed, a sound like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. "The real teaching," she said, "has been happening all along, but you have been too busy waiting for something else to notice. Every time you drew water, you practiced patience and presence. Every time you cleaned, you learned about returning things to order. Every time you cooked, you participated in the cycle of nourishment and care. But these are just chores," the young woman protested, "not spiritual practice, not enlightenment." The master shook her head slowly, sadly, like someone watching a child refuse a gift. "You came here believing that enlightenment was separate from ordinary life, something elevated and special. But washing dishes is enlightenment when done with full attention. Drawing water is enlightenment when done without resentment. Cleaning floors is enlightenment when done without believing you should be doing something more important." The young woman felt anger rising, feeling mocked, feeling her year had been wasted. She announced she would leave in the morning, that this was not what she came for. The master simply nodded and said, "That is your choice, but before you go, let me ask you something. In all these months of service, how many moments were you truly present, fully here, not wishing you were somewhere else or doing something different?" The question stopped the young woman in her tracks, and she realized with sudden clarity that she had barely been present at all. Every task had been performed while thinking about future teachings, about enlightenment waiting somewhere ahead, about anything except the actual moment she was living. She had been physically here, but mentally always elsewhere, always in a future that never arrived. Tears came then, not of sadness, but of recognition, of seeing how she had been creating her own suffering through resistance to what is. The master put a gentle hand on the young woman's shoulder. "This is the teaching," she said softly, "that liberation comes not through achieving some special state, but through fully inhabiting the state you are already in. Enlightenment is not an experience you have, it is a quality of awareness you bring to every experience. You have been enlightened all along, but you kept looking past this moment towards some imagined other moment where peace finally arrives. And so you missed the peace that was here all along, in the weight of water carried, in the rhythm of the broom, in the smell of rice cooking." The young woman stayed, not for a year, but for many years, and her understanding deepened like roots growing into earth. She learned that every moment contains the same potential for awakening as every other moment. There are no special moments and ordinary moments, no spiritual activities and mundane activities. There is only this, only now, only the opportunity to be fully present with whatever arises, whether profound or simple, whether pleasant or difficult. Eventually she left the mountain, not because her training was complete, but because she realized it would never be complete. The training is life itself, every moment offering another chance to wake up, to notice, to let go of resistance and meet reality with an open heart. She returned to the world carrying no special knowledge, no secret teachings, no impressive credentials. But people who met her noticed something different, a quality of presence, of ease, of being comfortable in her own skin. When asked what she had learned from her teacher, she would smile and say something simple. I learned to wash dishes, to sweep floors, to carry water without wishing I was doing something else. And this, she would add with quiet conviction, turned out to be everything. The person asking usually looked confused, expecting something more, something that sounded more enlightened. But she would just smile and return to whatever task was in front of her, fully present, fully engaged, fully alive. This teaching arrives again and again throughout history, in every tradition, through countless forms and voices. It says that what we are seeking is not somewhere else, not in the future, not after more practice or better circumstances. It is here now, hidden only by our refusal to see it, obscured only by our belief that it must be somewhere other than here. The young woman travelled far to learn what she already knew, spent a year working to discover what was present from the beginning. And perhaps you too have travelled far, through years and experiences, through effort and seeking, through books and teachers and practices, looking for something you already possess. Not because you failed to find it, but because you were looking past it, through it, around it, never quite landing here in this simple, obvious, endlessly available moment. Peace is not an achievement, it is a recognition, not a destination, but a homecoming to where you have always been. Your body knows this already, breathing without instructions, heart beating without concern, cells renewing without supervision. The body never left this moment, never stopped being here, never got lost in stories about past or future. Only the mind wanders, and even that wandering is just another occurrence, another movement in awareness, another form that emptiness takes. You do not need to stop the mind from wandering, only notice that even the wandering happens within the stillness that you are. Breathe again, softer now, letting the belly rise and fall like gentle hills under morning mist. Feel how little effort breathing actually requires, how it happens on its own, how you have been breathing perfectly your entire life, without ever attending a workshop on proper breathing technique. This is the Master's teaching arriving directly, not through words, but through the simple, undeniable fact of your own existence. You are here, you are breathing, you are alive, and this is enough. This has always been enough. Thoughts will continue, and that is fine. They are just weather patterns moving through the sky of mind. Sounds will arise and fade, sensations will come and go, and through all of this something remains constant. Something that watches without effort, that knows without thinking, that exists without needing to prove itself. This is what the young woman came to know. This is what the Master pointed toward through mundane tasks. This is what every genuine teaching ultimately reveals. The path to peace is not a path at all. It is a stopping, a recognition, a letting go of the search itself. When the young woman stopped waiting for enlightenment to arrive and became present with what was actually happening, she discovered what had been there all along. When you stop waiting for the perfect meditation, the ideal circumstances, the final understanding, you may notice that peace has been sitting here patiently, like an old friend waiting for you to remember their name. Somewhere in the world, someone is weaving thread into cloth, fingers moving with the same rhythm the Master's fingers moved. Someone is drawing water from a well, feeling the weight of the bucket, the cool splash of liquid. Someone is sweeping a floor, watching dust motes dance in afternoon light, noticing how the mind wanders and returns, like breath, like waves, like everything in this endlessly cycling universe. And in these simple actions, enlightenment flowers, quietly, unannounced, asking nothing, offering everything to those who have stopped demanding something more. Night deepens around you now, holding you in its soft embrace. The day you lived has dissolved into the past, and tomorrow has not yet taken form. Right here, in this gap between what was and what will be, exists only this eternal present, this moment that is always new, always fresh, always offering itself completely. And you are invited to rest here, not as an achievement, but as a homecoming, not as something earned, but as something remembered. The mind may whisper that this is too simple, that peace should require more effort, more complexity, more struggle. But simplicity is the signature of truth, and what is most essential is always closest, always most obvious, always hiding in plain sight. The master taught through chores because she knew that if the young woman could not find peace while washing dishes, she would never find it anywhere. And if you cannot find rest here, in this bed, in this darkness, in this breath, where else could you possibly find it? There was a time, long before our time, when a sculptor worked with stone. His hands knew the feel of marble, the weight of the mallet, the precise angle needed to reveal form hiding within rock. He created beautiful works, statues that seemed to breathe, faces that appeared ready to speak. People commissioned pieces from him, paid well, displayed his work in temples and gardens. But despite his success, the sculptor felt something missing, some essential quality his work lacked. He travelled to see a master sculptor, an old man who lived simply despite fame that stretched across many lands. The younger sculptor brought examples of his work, hoping for technical advice, for secrets of the craft he had not yet learned. The master examined the pieces carefully, running fingers over smooth surfaces, studying lines and proportions. Finally he nodded and said, "Your technique is excellent, your skill is undeniable, but your work is dead." The younger sculptor felt defensive, hurt by such harsh judgment. He asked what the master meant, how work that looked so lifelike could be considered dead. The old master invited him to walk in the garden, where several of his own pieces stood among flowers and trees. "Look at this one," the master said, pointing to a statue of a woman carrying water. The younger sculptor looked and saw nothing special, nothing that seemed different from his own work. The master smiled and asked him to keep looking, not with eyes seeking perfection, but with eyes seeking truth. The younger man tried, staring at the statue until his vision blurred, until frustration made him want to turn away. And then, in a moment of exhaustion, of giving up trying to see, he saw. The statue was not perfect. There were irregularities, small asymmetries, places where the stone had been allowed to remain rough. And yet it lived, it breathed, it existed with a presence that had nothing to do with technical mastery. "What is the difference?" the younger sculptor asked, "between my work and yours?" The master sat on a bench worn smooth by years of use. "When you carve," the master said, "you are trying to impose your will on the stone, to make it conform to your vision. You are fighting with the material, dominating it, forcing it to become what you think it should be. But when I carve, I listen to the stone. I feel where it wants to break. I follow the grain. I collaborate, rather than dominate. The younger sculptor pondered this, uncertain whether it was genuine wisdom or poetic nonsense. The master continued, his voice patient, his manner free of any need to convince. Every piece of stone is unique, with its own history, its own internal structure, its own nature. If you approach it with violence, trying to bend it entirely to your will, the result may be technically perfect, but spiritually empty. But if you approach it with respect, listening to what the stone itself wants to express, the result will have life, will have breath, will have something that cannot be taught or manufactured. The younger sculptor stayed with the master for a season, not learning new techniques, but unlearning old habits. He learned to feel the stone before shaping it, to sit with it, to understand its nature before imposing his ideas. He learned that sometimes a crack was not a flaw to be hidden, but a truth to be honoured. He learned that perfection was less interesting than authenticity, that roughness could contain more life than polish. His work began to change, becoming less controlled, less predictable, more alive. Commissions decreased because his new pieces disturbed people who wanted beauty they could understand, perfection they could explain. But the sculptor no longer cared about pleasing others or proving his skill. He cared about being in honest relationship with his materials, about creating work that had integrity, even if it lacked obvious beauty. Years later, when he had become old himself, students would come seeking his teaching. He would take them to his workshop and point to the stones waiting there, each one different, each one silent, each one carrying potential. Your task, he would tell them, is not to master the stone, but to serve it, not to impose your vision, but to discover what is already present. And when they looked confused, when they wanted clearer instructions, he would simply hand them a mallet and say, "Begin, and listen more than you look." This teaching speaks to how we approach everything. In life, not just art, but relationships, work, our own bodies and minds. We believe that effort means forcing, that achievement requires dominating, that success comes through imposing will on reluctant circumstances. But the sculptor learned differently. He learned that true mastery is collaboration, that authentic creation requires listening as much as doing. You lie here now, trying perhaps to force yourself to relax, to make peace happen through effort and control. But relaxation cannot be forced any more than stone can be truly mastered. It can only be invited, welcomed, allowed. The body knows how to rest, has been resting since before you were born. Your task is not to make it rest, but to stop preventing it from doing what it naturally does. Listen to your body the way the sculptor learned to listen to stone. Where does it hold tension, and why, and what is it trying to protect? Where does breath want to go if you stop directing it? How does it naturally flow when you stop trying to breathe correctly? What if you approached yourself with the same respect the master sculptor brought to marble, honouring what is there rather than forcing what you think should be? The stone is not an enemy to be conquered, but a partner to be understood. Your body is not a machine to be controlled, but a living system to be befriended. Your mind is not a problem to be solved, but a process to be witnessed. And when you stop fighting, stop forcing, stop trying to impose perfect stillness on your naturally dynamic nature, something shifts, something softens, something that was tight begins to loosen. The master sculptor created beautiful work, not by mastering stone, but by mastering his relationship with stone. You create beautiful rest, not by mastering relaxation, but by mastering your relationship with this moment, exactly as it is. And mastery here means something different than what we usually think. It means letting go, listening, collaborating with reality rather than fighting against it. Breath flows in and flows out, following its own wisdom, its own timing, its own path. You do not need to improve it or perfect it or make it more spiritual. It is already perfect in its imperfection, already spiritual in its simplicity, already doing exactly what needs to be done. The sculptor learned to trust the stone's nature, and you can learn to trust your own nature, your body's innate intelligence, your breath's natural rhythm. Somewhere, stone waits in mountains, holding form that has not yet been discovered. It does not worry about whether it will become art, does not fear remaining just stone, does not need to be anything other than what it is. And you too can rest in your own nature, not needing to become something other, not waiting for transformation before you allow peace, not demanding that this moment be different before you accept it fully. The sculptor's students would ask when they would be ready to create masterpieces. He would smile and say that readiness was not a destination, but a quality of attention. You are ready, he would tell them, whenever you stop demanding readiness and simply begin. You are capable whenever you stop waiting for capability and simply act. You are enough whenever you stop measuring enoughness and simply are. So too with rest, with peace, with this moment unfolding in darkness around you. You are ready to rest, not when you have achieved perfect conditions, but now, right now, with traffic sounds or silence, with comfort or slight discomfort, with a quiet mind or a busy one. The conditions will never be perfect because perfect conditions do not exist, and waiting for them is just another way of avoiding the present moment. The stone does not wait for the perfect sculptor before it allows itself to be carved. The sculptor does not wait for the perfect stone before he allows himself to create. They meet in reality, in what is actually present, and from that meeting something new emerges. You and this moment can meet the same way, without preconditions, without demands, without needing anything to be different first. Each breath is a meeting, a collaboration, a dance between intention and surrender. You can suggest depth, and breath responds or does not, free to follow its own rhythm. You can invite stillness, and the body answers in its own time, its own way, honouring its own wisdom. This is not failure of technique, but success of relationship, not loss of control, but discovery of something better than control. The master sculptor's pieces lived because he allowed the stone to participate in their creation. Your rest can be alive in the same way, dynamic rather than static, real rather than idealized, authentic rather than perfect. And authentic rest is deeper than perfect rest because it does not require anything except what is already here, already happening, already breathing itself without your help. Thoughts continue their movement, and that too is part of the stone's nature, part of the grain you can follow rather than fight. Some thoughts are dense and difficult, like knots in wood that require patience. Some thoughts are soft and yielding, like clay that moulds easily. And some thoughts are like empty space between stars, just gaps in the fabric, places where nothing needs to happen at all. You do not need to carve away all thoughts before you can rest, just as the sculptor did not need to remove all irregularity before the stone could be beautiful. Let thoughts be there. Let them move or settle. Let them be exactly what they are. They are just another texture in the stone of this moment, just another part of what is here. And what is here is always enough, always complete, always exactly what it needs to be. The sculptor grew old, his hands eventually unable to hold the tools that had shaped his life. But he did not mourn this loss because he understood that every form is temporary, every skill eventually fades. What remained was something deeper, something that had nothing to do with hands or tools or stone. It was an understanding, a way of seeing, a quality of presence that could not be taken away by age or illness or circumstance. You too are being shaped by time, by breath, by this moment flowing into the next. And what remains, after all the doing and achieving and struggling, is simply this awareness, this capacity to know that you exist, to feel breath moving, to rest in being rather than constantly becoming. The sculptor pointed students towards stone, but really he was pointing toward themselves, toward the recognition that the art and the artist and the material are not separate things, but one movement, one expression, one unbroken wholeness. Rest now in that wholeness, not as an idea to understand, but as an experience to inhabit. Let the boundary soften between you and the darkness, you and the breath, you and this moment. Let them blur until there is just experiencing, just being, just this eternal now that has never been absent, never been anywhere but here. The night holds you like the master sculptor held stone, with respect and patience, with no need to rush, with faith in the process of natural unfolding. And you can trust that holding, can surrender to it, can let it shape you into deeper rest, deeper peace, deeper silence. Not through effort, but through allowing. Not through doing, but through being. Not through becoming something else, but through recognizing what you have always been. In a monastery built among cliffs, where eagles circled on thermals and clouds gathered at eye level, there lived a monk who never spoke. Not because he had taken a vow of silence, but because, as he explained in writing, words always seemed insufficient for what needed to be said. He went about his duties with quiet attention, sweeping courtyards, preparing meals, tending the small garden that clung to the mountainside. Other monks respected his silence, worked around it, eventually forgot it was unusual at all. One year, a scholar arrived at the monastery, a man famous for his lectures and writings on Buddhist philosophy. He had published many books, taught at prestigious universities, debated with other scholars about the precise meaning of ancient texts. He came to the monastery seeking quiet for reflection, hoping to deepen his understanding through meditation and study. The abbot welcomed him, gave him a simple room, and invited him to participate in the community's daily rhythm. The scholar noticed the silent monk immediately, was curious about him, wanted to understand his reasons for not speaking. He tried approaching with questions, but the monk would only smile and return to his work. The scholar tried leaving notes, but the monk did not reply. Finally, frustrated, the scholar complained to the abbot that one of the monks was being rude, refusing to engage in legitimate philosophical discourse. The abbot listened patiently, then suggested something unexpected. He said that if the scholar truly wanted to understand the silent monk, he should spend one day following him, doing exactly what he did, saying exactly what he said. The scholar agreed, thinking it would be easy, thinking he could learn whatever lesson was intended and return to his studies. The next morning he rose when the silent monk rose, followed him to the meditation hall, sat where he sat. The day stretched long, much longer than the scholar expected. Every moment had to be met without the buffer of speech, without the ability to comment or analyse or distance himself through words. When they swept the courtyard, there was only sweeping, no mental lecture about the metaphorical significance of cleaning. When they prepared food, there was only cutting vegetables, no scholarly thoughts about mindfulness or Zen cooking. When they sat in meditation, there was only sitting, no internal essay forming about the nature of consciousness. By evening, the scholar felt exhausted, not from physical labour, but from the effort of remaining silent. He realised how much energy he spent in constant commentary, how his mind created endless narration about everything he experienced. Without permission to speak, something in him grew frustrated, restless, almost desperate. He wanted to break the silence, to explain his insights, to prove his understanding through articulate expression. But the silent monk simply continued his work, and the scholar had agreed to follow exactly, so he remained quiet. They ate dinner in silence, washed dishes in silence, walked to evening meditation in silence, and somewhere in that last hour, as darkness settled over the mountains and the temple grew still, something shifted in the scholar. The restlessness did not disappear, but his relationship to it changed. He stopped fighting it, stopped needing to explain it, stopped trying to understand it with concepts and words. After meditation, the scholar returned to his room and wrote in his journal. He wrote that he had learned more in one day of silence than in years of studying texts, more from watching a monk sweep than from a library of philosophical treatises. He wrote that understanding was not the same as knowledge, that wisdom could not be captured in concepts, that direct experience always exceeded any description, and he wrote that he finally understood why the monk remained silent, that some truths could only be lived, never spoken, never written, never explained. The scholar stayed at the monastery for many months, speaking less and less, until his own silence became natural rather than forced. He did not abandon words entirely. They still had their place and their use, but he learned to let silence speak when it wanted to, learned to trust the wordless, knowing that arose in quiet moments, learned that not everything needed to be said, analysed, or understood. Years later, when students asked him about his transformation, about what he had learned in the mountains, he would pause a long time before answering, and often his answer would be brief, almost disappointingly simple. He would say, "I learned to be quiet, and in the quiet I heard what words had been drowning out." The students would press for more, wanting elaborate explanations, wanting wisdom they could write down and study. But he would just smile, the same smile the silent monk had worn, and return to whatever he was doing. This teaching arrives in many forms, through many traditions, always pointing toward the same understanding. The mind loves words, loves concepts, loves the feeling of grasping and comprehending. But some things cannot be grasped, some experiences exceed language, some truths can only be known in the body and the heart. The scholar spent years building elaborate verbal structures, creating beautiful philosophical systems, thinking he was approaching truth through ever more sophisticated thinking. But the silent monk knew what saints and sages have always known, that reality is simpler than thought, more immediate than concept, more available than any intellectual understanding. The present moment cannot be explained, it can only be inhabited. The taste of tea cannot be conveyed through words, it can only be experienced directly. The feeling of breath cannot be captured in philosophy, it can only be felt as it happens. You lie here now in darkness, and thoughts may be moving like the scholar's thoughts, commenting, analysing, trying to understand what you are experiencing. This is not wrong. The mind does what minds do, creates stories and interpretations and meanings. But beneath the commentary, more fundamental than any thought about breathing, there is actual breathing happening. More real than any idea of rest, there is actual resting occurring right now. What if you let the commentary fade, not by fighting it, but by becoming more interested in direct experience than in thoughts about experience? What if you became like the silent monk, not needing to explain or understand, simply allowing each moment to be what it is without verbal elaboration? Breath comes in, breath goes out, and perhaps there does not need to be a story about it, a judgment of whether it is good breathing or bad breathing. Sound arises somewhere in the distance, and perhaps it is just sound, not an irritation to be analysed or a distraction to be overcome. Sensation emerges in the body, and perhaps it is just sensation, not a problem to be solved or a symptom to be worried about. Thought appears in awareness, and perhaps it is just thought, not truth or enemy or anything that requires response. The silent monk did not explain his silence because explanation would have defeated its purpose. Silence is not something you can think your way into. It is something you fall into when thinking becomes less interesting than being. And being is what you are already doing, even now, even as thoughts continue their dance. You are being here, being aware, being alive. And none of that requires verbal confirmation or intellectual understanding. The scholar's book still exists somewhere, full of carefully crafted arguments and profound insights. But what transformed him was not reading or writing more books. It was following a quiet man through a quiet day, allowing silence to teach what words never could. And you can learn the same lesson, not by reading about meditation or studying the philosophy of rest, but by actually resting, actually letting go, actually allowing this moment to be exactly what it is. There is nowhere to get to, nothing to achieve, no understanding that needs to arrive before peace becomes available. The silent monk was already peaceful, not because he had figured something out, but because he had stopped trying to figure everything out. He was not pursuing enlightenment, he was simply doing the next thing with full attention, sweeping when it was time to sweep, sitting when it was time to sit, sleeping when it was time to sleep. And sleep is approaching for you now, or maybe it is not. Maybe you will lie awake a while longer. Either way is fine. Either way is this moment offering itself without conditions. You do not need to manufacture sleep, force it, worry about whether it is coming. Sleep is not something you do. It is something that happens when conditions are right, when the body feels safe enough to let go, when the mind grows tired of its own activity. Your only task is to remain here, remain present, remain open to whatever unfolds. Not in some special spiritual way, just in the simple obvious way of not resisting, not judging, not turning away from what is actually occurring. The scholar tried to remain silent for one day and found it nearly impossible because his whole identity was built on words. But by the end of the day something shifted. not because he achieved silence, but because he stopped fighting with his own nature. So too you can stop fighting with your own nature, with the thoughts that think, with the body that feels, with the reality that presents itself moment by moment. You can meet it the way the silent monk met each task, with attention but without commentary, with presence but without judgment. And in that meeting, something that was tight begins to loosen, something that was struggling begins to rest, something that was loud begins to grow quiet. The monastery still stands somewhere in mountains where clouds gather at eye level. Monks still sweep courtyards and sit in meditation and eat their meals in silence or soft conversation. And somewhere among them, or somewhere in the world, someone is discovering what the scholar discovered, that wisdom is not found in libraries or lecture halls, but in the quiet space between thoughts, in the gap where concepts dissolve and direct experience shines through. You are invited into that space now, not as a destination, but as a recognition. It is where you have always been, beneath the noise, underneath the commentary, prior to all the words and ideas and stories. It is the silence that watches thoughts without becoming them, the stillness that allows movement without being disturbed by it, the peace that exists whether you notice it or not. Let your attention rest in that silence, not by forcing thoughts away, but by becoming interested in the space around them. Thoughts are like birds flying through the sky of awareness, and you can watch them fly without needing to catch them, without needing to become them, without needing to do anything with them at all. They appear, they move, they disappear, and the sky remains clear, vast, unchanging. This is who you are beneath the identity of being a thinker, beneath the role of being someone who does things. This is the awareness that was here before you learnt language, before you developed personality, before you became this particular person with this particular history. And this awareness does not get tired, does not need rest, does not require anything at all. It simply watches, simply knows, simply is. The body may rest deeply, may drift into sleep, may find relief in letting go. But the awareness that knows the body resting does not sleep, does not tire, does not need anything to happen or not happen. It is always here, always available, always at peace with whatever is occurring. And recognizing this, even dimly, even partially, brings a quality of rest that goes deeper than physical sleep. The silent monk never spoke because he lived from that awareness, from that place that has nothing to say, because it already knows everything that needs to be known. Not intellectual knowing, not the accumulation of information, but the direct knowing of simply being here, simply being aware, simply being what you have always been, beneath all the doing and achieving and struggling. Let the words fade now, let the teaching dissolve, let even this voice become just another sound among sounds. What remains when all words cease, when all concepts release, when all striving ends? Just this, just now, just the quiet eternal presence that you are and have always been. Rest there, sink there, let yourself be held by that which cannot be spoken, but can only be known through the deepest listening, the most profound silence, the gentlest surrender. In the space between heartbeats, in the gap between breaths, something exists that has never been touched by time. It is neither old nor young, neither beginning nor ending, neither coming nor going. The ancient teachers pointed toward it with stories and silence, with questions that had no answers, with answers that made no sense. They knew that the mind cannot grasp what it itself arises from, that understanding cannot comprehend its own source, that the eye cannot see itself seeing. But they also knew that recognition is possible, that in certain moments the veil becomes transparent, that direct knowing can arise when seeking finally exhausts itself. These moments cannot be forced or scheduled or repeated through technique. They come like grace, like rain after drought, like the first star appearing in evening sky, and yet they are also always available, always here, because what is recognized is not something that sometimes exists and sometimes does not, but something that has never for a moment been absent. You may have experienced this before, in flashes so brief you questioned whether they happened at all. Perhaps in a moment of beauty that stopped thought completely, when sunset or music or a child's laughter pierced through the veil. Perhaps in a moment of exhaustion when trying finally ceased and everything became simple, obvious, already complete. Perhaps in meditation when the breath became so subtle that the boundary between breathing and being breathed dissolved entirely. These glimpses are not achievements to be claimed, or states to be maintained, or experiences to be repeated. They are reminders, moments when what has always been true becomes momentarily obvious, like clouds parting to reveal the sky that was never actually hidden. The clouds of thought, of concept, of selfing and striving, they are always moving across awareness, sometimes thick, sometimes thin, sometimes completely obscuring, sometimes nearly transparent. But the sky itself never changes, never comes or goes, never becomes more or less what it is. The body breathes itself, has been breathing itself since birth without your conscious direction. The heart beats itself, maintaining rhythm without your oversight or control. Blood flows, cells divide, healing happens, all without consulting the mind that believes it is in charge. This intelligence that animates your form is not something you possess or control or need to improve. It is what you are, more fundamental than personality, more essential than any identity you carry. And this intelligence knows how to rest, knows how to release, knows how to let go when holding on becomes too exhausting. Your conscious mind may continue its chattering, its worrying, its planning and remembering and commenting. But beneath that surface activity, in the deep body, in the cellular wisdom, in the awareness that precedes thought, rest is already happening. The body is already letting go, already sinking into healing, already doing what bodies have done since the first bodies formed. You do not need to help it, improve it, perfect it, or worry about whether it is resting correctly. You only need to stop interfering, stop second-guessing, stop checking constantly to see if you are doing it right. Rest is not a doing, it is an allowing, a permission you give yourself to simply be here without agenda, without goal, without needing to accomplish even the accomplishment of falling asleep. Sleep will come, or it will not, and either way, this moment is the one you are living. If you spend it anxiously pursuing sleep, you miss the peace available right now in simply lying here, simply breathing, simply being awake without turning that awakeness into a problem to be solved. The monks in the monastery do not worry about whether their meditation is successful or whether they are achieving the correct state. They simply sit, simply breathe, simply allow whatever arises to arise and whatever passes to pass. This is the deepest practice, the most fundamental teaching, the one that underlies all techniques, and methods and approaches. Stop trying to make something happen and notice what is already happening. Stop trying to create peace and notice the peace that exists beneath all the noise. Stop trying to control the breath and feel how it breathes itself, how it has been breathing you all along rather than you breathing it. The sense of being a separate self, a controller, a doer, this is not wrong or bad or something to be eliminated. It is simply a thought pattern, a habitual way of organising experience, a story that runs so constantly we mistake it for reality. But in deep rest, in profound letting go, in moments of complete surrender, that story begins to loosen its hold. Not because you make it loosen, but because the energy that sustains it grows tired and withdraws. What remains when the story of self becomes quiet? Not nothing, not an absence, not a void that is frightening or empty. What remains is the awareness that has been here all along, the knowing that requires no knower, the being that needs no separate entity to be. This awareness is not yours. It is not anyone's. It is simply what is, the ground from which all experience arises, the space in which all phenomena appear and disappear. You are that space, that awareness, that ground, not as a philosophical idea to believe in, not as a spiritual concept to understand, but as the direct, immediate, undeniable truth of your actual experience right now. Who is aware of the breath? Who notices the thoughts? Who feels the body lying here? Not the thoughts themselves, not the body itself, but something that knows the thoughts and knows the body, something that has never been not here. This is not a new discovery. You have always been this awareness, but attention has been so captured by the content of awareness that the awareness itself has been overlooked. Like someone so focused on the movie that they forget they are watching a screen, or so absorbed in thoughts that they forget they are the space in which thinking occurs. The spiritual path, if we can call it that, is not about becoming something other than what you are. It is about recognizing what you have always been. And this recognition brings a profound rest, deeper than sleep, more fundamental than any relaxation technique. When the burden of being a separate self loosens, when the exhausting project of maintaining and defending and improving that self takes a break, what remains is an ease that has nothing to do with circumstances. Peace, not because everything is going well, but peace because there is no longer anyone who needs everything to go well. This may sound abstract, may sound like philosophy rather than practical guidance for sleep, but it is actually the most practical thing possible because it addresses the root rather than the symptoms, the cause rather than the effects. All restlessness, all insomnia, all difficulty letting go comes from identification with thought, from believing you are the thinker rather than the awareness in which thinking occurs. And that belief, that mistaken identity, creates constant tension because thoughts are always changing, always moving, always threatening to bring some problem or disaster. But awareness itself is never threatened, never in danger, never at risk. It watches problems appear without becoming them, watches fear arise without being afraid, watches even sleep approach without needing to control its arrival. This is true rest, this recognition that what you fundamentally are is already and always at peace, already and always free, already and always home. The teachings, the stories, the practices, they are all pointing toward this recognition. The blind calligrapher surrendering to not seeing, the temple cat resting without self-consciousness, the monks watching their library burn without grasping, the seeker learning presence through mundane tasks, the sculptor discovering collaboration with stone, the scholar finding wisdom in silence. Every story, every teaching, every pointer, saying the same thing in different ways. Peace is not found by controlling circumstances, but by recognizing what you are, is never disturbed by any circumstance. So let that recognition dawn now, not as an intellectual understanding, but as a felt sense, a direct knowing, a relief that comes from nowhere and goes nowhere. You do not have to maintain it, or hold on to it, or fear losing it. It is not a state that comes and goes, but the constant ground that all states come and go within. Like the ocean that remains ocean, whether the surface is calm or stormy, whether waves rise or fall, whether boats sail or sink. Breath continues, sometimes deep, sometimes shallow, sometimes smooth, sometimes ragged, and all of it is fine, all of it is just breathing, just life happening by itself. Body continues, sensations arising and passing, comfort and discomfort dancing their eternal dance, and all of it is just the body being a body, doing what bodies do. Mind continues, thoughts streaming like clouds, sometimes dark, sometimes light, sometimes blocking the sun completely, and all of it is just mind being mind, not a problem unless we believe it is. And beneath all of this, prior to all of this, the awareness that knows breath and body and mind remains unchanging, untouched, already free. This is what you are. This is what you have always been. This is what you will always be, even when this particular body releases its final breath and this particular mind thinks its final thought. The awareness itself has no birth and no death, no beginning and no end, no boundary where it starts or stops. This is not a comforting belief or a pleasant philosophy. This is the direct truth of your experience. If you look carefully enough, if you rest deeply enough, if you let go completely enough. Not the truth according to Buddhism or any other tradition, but the truth according to your own immediate, undeniable knowing. You exist, you are aware, and this existence and awareness is not something you do or have or could lose. It is what you are most fundamentally. And recognizing this, even partially, even dimly, brings a quality of rest that makes all the struggle seem unnecessary, all the seeking seem almost comical, all the worry seem like mistaken identity. Not that worries stop mattering or problems disappear or life becomes perfect, but they happen within such a vast spaciousness that they no longer dominate, no longer convince you they are the whole story, no longer have the power to disturb the fundamental peace that you are. Let this understanding sink deeper now, not as something to think about, but as something to dissolve into. Let the words release their meaning and just become sounds. Let the sounds fade into silence. Let the silence reveal itself as the fullness from which all sound emerges. Rest there in that fullness, in that silence, in that awareness that has no name and needs no validation. The night continues its ancient rhythm, stars turning in their courses, earth spinning without effort, universe unfolding according to laws beyond comprehension. And you are part of that unfolding, not separate from it, not controlling it, just participating in the great dance that has no beginning and no ending. The same awareness that looks through your eyes looks through every eye. The same presence that breathes your breath breathes all breath. The same being that exists as you exists as everything. This is not poetry, not mysticism, not spiritual fantasy. This is physics, This is biology. This is the undeniable fact that everything is made of the same energy, the same awareness, the same mysterious presence that calls itself by infinite names and wears infinite forms. You are not an isolated fragment struggling for survival in a hostile universe. You are the universe itself, temporarily appearing as this particular perspective, this particular body, this particular stream of thought and sensation. And when you recognize this, when you feel it not just intellectually, but in your bones, in your heart, in the marrow of your being, rest becomes effortless. How can the universe worry about resting? How can existence itself have insomnia? How can awareness be anxious about whether awareness is doing it right? These questions reveal their own absurdity, and in that revealing comes liberation, comes laughter, comes the profound ease of recognizing you have always been free and just forgot for a while. So, welcome home, welcome to what you never left, welcome to the recognition that has always been waiting here, patiently, not waiting for you to become worthy or enlightened or perfect, just waiting for the moment when seeking exhausts itself and what is already here becomes obvious. This may be that moment, or that moment may come later, or it may have already come and gone 1,000 times without being named or claimed or made into achievement. It does not matter, because the recognition itself has nothing to do with time, nothing to do with progress, nothing to do with getting somewhere or becoming something. It is always only now, always only here, always only this immediacy that cannot be grasped or held, but can be lived, can be breathed, can be trusted completely. And in that trust, in that surrendering into what is, rather than struggling toward what should be, peace reveals itself to have been here all along. The breath knows this peace, the body knows this peace, the awareness knows this peace. Only the mind doubts, only thought creates problems, only identification with the thinker makes restlessness possible. But even the mind and its doubts and its problems arise in awareness, move through awareness, dissolve in awareness. They are not the enemy, not obstacles to be overcome, just more waves in the ocean, more clouds in the sky, more phenomena appearing and disappearing in the vast spaciousness you are. Let them be, let them move, let them do whatever they do. Your task is not to control the waves or clear the sky. Your task is to recognize you are the ocean, you are the sky, you are the space in which all this occurs. And the ocean is never disturbed by its own waves. The sky is never damaged by its own weather. The space is never filled or emptied or changed in any way by what appears within it. This is freedom. This is peace. This is the rest that does not depend on circumstances or conditions or anything being different than it is. And it is available now, has always been available, will always be available, because it is what you are, not something you need to attain or achieve or deserve. Just what you are, what you have always been, what you will always be, prior to all stories, beneath all identities, before all questions and after all answers dissolve into the silence from which they came. So rest now, completely, deeply, without reservation or holding back. Rest as the awareness you are, as the space that holds all experience, as the presence that has never been absent. Let the body do what bodies do, let the mind do what minds do. Let breath breathe itself and sleep arrive or not arrive. All of it is just phenomena appearing in what you are, and what you are remains forever at peace, forever free, forever home. The candle burns low in the temple somewhere, wax pooling, flame dancing its final dance before darkness returns. But the darkness itself is not absence, it is presence, the fertile void from which all light emerges and to which all light returns. You too are returning now, not to sleep necessarily, but to source, to ground, to the deep rest that requires nothing, demands nothing, simply welcomes everything as it is. And as the words fade, as silence grows, as this moment opens into the next and the next and the next, may you know yourself as you truly are, as you have always been, as what can never be lost because it was never gained, what can never be found because it was never missing, what can never be explained because it is simpler than any explanation, more obvious than any pointer, more present than presence itself. Rest now, deeply, completely, trusting what cannot be named, and know that you are held, you are seen, you are known by that which knows all things, by that which breathes all breath, by that which loves itself into form and loves itself back into formlessness again and again without end. You are that love, that breath, that knowing. You are home, you are free, you are at peace, and the night continues without you needing to do a single thing.